because of a hillside that is given way just in front of the homes. And this same kind of activity is going on north of San Francisco as well, where record
special edition of WeatherScope.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of WeatherScope right here in the Forecast Center. I'm Jeff Morrow. Big nor'easter still affecting parts of New England, lashing the coast with some very high winds and some rain, some sleet, little snow mixed in at times, freezing drizzle. We've got it all there, plus some very heavy surf and the threat of some coastal flooding. And even farther to the west, we're still dealing with record-setting snows in some cases. Hopefully that will be winding down soon. We'll talk about both of these factors in just a moment. First of all, let's get the big picture and put the satellite picture into motion. There is the low pressure area. Pretty easy to see the spin around our area of low pressure, but it's actually the difference in pressure between that low and a high, which is actually north, but I'll draw it right here so that you can see that there is a pressure difference between those two systems, still funneling that northeasterly wind, and in some cases up here in New England, it's almost a northerly wind right down the coast. That is pretty much parallel to parts of the Jersey Shore and on the Delmarva, so not as much as a coastal effect there. However, that is still driving a lot of the wind and waves into parts of eastern New England. Also want to draw your attention to this area out to the west. Still a lot of snow falling in extreme southern Ohio, Indiana, into parts of Kentucky. And again, as I mentioned, there are some record-setting snows there. But let's start off with the coastal flooding threat, the gusty winds, and just an absolutely miserable night to be out in Scituate, Massachusetts. So we're better to send Kristen Dodd than right out there along the coast. Kristen, I've been watching you most of the afternoon into the evening. It's been pretty nasty. What are conditions like now?
It has been pretty nasty, but we are seeing some signs of change. We are past the high tide, and so that is some good news. Earlier, if you were tuning in, we were watching the waves actually coming over the seawall and all the way up. Now that has, at least for the time being, seemed to have come to an end. We still are seeing some very strong waves with our northeasterly winds coming in and helping kick those up. But now that the tide is going out, we are not seeing the big lap over that we were seeing here in Scituate. We are seeing some ponding here on the other side of the seawall. We do have about, a half foot of sand that has washed up on the deck here of the cottage that we've been using as our lookout post throughout the night. And we also have seen some of the sand being blown into the roadways, but so far we're not seeing anything being closed. One concern with the strong winds that do continue are that some of the power lines may be coming down. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that situation and aspect of the storm throughout the night. Back to you.
All right, Kristen, and try to keep dry there. Unfortunately, since the tide is going out, you won't get quite as wet as you were getting from that sea spray. All right, that was Kristen Dodd reporting from Scituate, Massachusetts. By the way, that is just along the coast there south of the Boston area. Let's go ahead and show you where The marine warnings are out, and again, as I mentioned, with the very strong northeasterly wind flow here, there are still gale warnings from Eastport, Maine, all the way down to Chatham, Massachusetts. Kristen being located about right in there, so she has been getting the full brunt of that northeasterly wind. These are storm warnings here from Chatham all the way over to Watch Hill, Rhode Island. That means winds up over, I believe, 55 miles per hour. And then from Watch Hill all the way down to Fenwick Island, Delaware, still gale warnings in effect. Now, there are some coastal flood advisories in effect, too, all the way from Watch Hill, Rhode Island, right on down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And with almost a due northerly wind blowing down Chesapeake Bay there could be some coastal flooding at the time of high tide, particularly down there around the Tidewater. And that is where Mike Seidel joins us. Mike, you've been around Virginia Beach, the Tidewater, the last couple of days. How has that region fared from this latest nor'easter?
Well, based on what we've seen on the news reports and what we've seen from our Weather Channel crews, I think we fared fairly well. The big problem was actually yesterday, last night, and early this morning. 5 to 7 inches of rain fell in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, and that led to a lot of street flooding, neighborhood flooding, and that caused a lot of disruption in life this morning. Now, coastal residents did find some problems in a couple of areas. One we want to show you in Sandbridge. This is the south side of Virginia Beach. You can see the huge waves, and this is the Sandpiper, Sandfiddler Road areas. These roads were underwater. Now the water has receded, but look at these homes up on stilts and the water coming right under the homes. Now you'll see a couple of structures which have collapsed. These were knocked down last week, in last week's nor'easter, and we just checked with emergency management officials, and no additional structures were knocked down at high tide late this afternoon. So that's some good news. But at least 3 dozen homes have been condemned last week, and the officials will go out there and check out the homes tomorrow to see if any additional homes have been condemned. The surf is still very dangerous here in Virginia Beach this evening, but again, the tide is going out. High tide this evening was about a foot below high tide this morning, the most dangerous one, and from here on out, it looks a whole lot better. In fact, it looks a lot nicer tonight. Winds are running about 15 to 20. This time last night, they were gusting as high as 60 miles an hour. So the cleanup is underway, and we look forward to some sunshine by the weekend here in Virginia Beach. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, Mike, and you're looking a whole lot drier than what you were when we talked to you last night. All right, that's Mike Seidel and Kristen Dodd with our live team coverage of this nor'easter. Joining me now here in the Forecast Center is senior meteorologist Colin Marquis, and again, dying down a little bit where Mike was, but Kristen's still catching some of the worst of it.
Yeah, the worst is over for the Delmarva area, right up through most of New Jersey, from eastern Long Island right up through the coast of southern New England. Still have several more hours of wind gusts, 40, 50 miles an hour, and heavy surf. All
right, let's show the folks what we're talking about, where this storm is and where we expect it to head. The low pressure area is still pretty much well offshore, which means